Marvelous!
It's very interesting that we're looking at this in conjunction with Ant-Man. One, because I also saw Ant-Man in theaters. Two, because of the Hawkeye series. But I guess we will also get to that later. That should be my catchphrase. Give me your thoughts on Ant-Man.
Are we just going right straight in?
Yeah, go for it.
Ant-Man, I want more information how we did this.
I would like to know exactly how his first, or not his first heist, but the heist that got him in jail went.
That's like a big thing. How did he do it? And then you meet the guy's team. Kurt the wizard on the laptop, Dave the tough guy, and then this talking one. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I love that. I love those characters.
I love them too. They're so good.
They're just like, here is these characters. I want to see them in every Ant-Man movie. You can't say otherwise. I like how Hank, the only reason he got back into stealing is because he was trying to be a father again.
You Scott.
Yes. Scott. When the first heist happens, I'm like, the way he get it from the grapevine, Lewis, and then you figure out later that it's a trap. I was like, but he gets it so complicated.
Those explanation scenes are amazing, actually. Yeah. I didn't write that in my notes, but those explanation scenes are the best.
One of my favorite scenes, my days of breaking into places and stealing shit is over. I need you to break into a place and steal some shit. That's hilarious. Hydra's still a thing. I'm like, what?
Their defeat comes later.
I like how the explanation of why he wanted his daughter wear the suit. That comes up later, but
I understand it, but at the same time, it is kind of fucked up that you hired someone to be the guy that could die.
Yeah, I'm the fall guy. You also watch Hank. You watch not Hank Scott so long.
Oh yeah, that's mad creepy too.
Like, we're gonna just cross over this. Yeah,
I'm also curious, like how you even, like why and how.
Well, giant ants, I guess. Don't bring those 3 wombats into this, Hank says. And then they immediately bring in the 3 wombats. I like how they established a relationship between Scott and his daughter.
Yes.
That is like the best thing, one of the best things in this show.
There's still a lot of that relationship establishing in this movie.
Yeah. I feel like the end, like when Scott and the inventor, I can't remember her name, the person who becomes the Wasps.
I don't remember her name either, but you might as well just refer to her as the Wasp.
Yep, the Wasp. Start kissing, like that came out of nowhere.
That did feel poorly set up.
Yeah,
I will say.
Yeah, like just like why. One of my favorite fights in this movie is when Surrey randomly starts playing music in a briefcase. Play, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to eviscerate you, I should say. Mm-hmm. The humor is just on point in this movie. Yes. I wrote that down. Man. I'm like, I had to write that down. Like, humor is on point.
I can bring up a very specific example because I was prepared. Actually, I'm going to save it because it's one of my notes.
I like how Scott had a chance to take out the main villain, but then he gets tasered.
Oh yeah.
I wonder, did the guy go subatomic afterwards Scott went into his suit, or
you're asking if Scott, the current Ant-Man, went subatomic?
Well, he went subatomic. I know that, but did the villain before, did he go subatomic, or what happened to him exactly?
I should know this because I watched this movie.
I know, but like Scott punches through a whole bunch of wires. And
probably did. Huh.
Yeah. And it's like, what? No, I was very confused about his death scene, or possible death.
Yeah, now that I think about it, that's kind of fucked up. Considering what they established about the subatomic plane.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I was like, what exactly is happening here? Like, did he go subatomic too?
I guess we'll see in Quantumania.
Yeah, I'm like, did that happen? Is that what happened? Oh yeah, apparently Ant-Man was originally supposed to be in the Avengers. We were originally planning to have him come before the Avengers came out.
I have that in my notes as well.
I had to wonder, like, it makes sense, but like, how? I wonder how they would bring that in.
I have some more context, actually.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
That's it.
Alright, so for what you were saying about the Ant-Man being developed before Avengers. So, apparently Ant-Man was being developed before the concept of the MCU. It was supposed to be a standalone story about Ant-Man, which I think explains a lot of like the creative direction they went with this movie. If you notice, this is a very different movie from the other superhero movies that we've watched so far. I would say it has its own style to it. Most of what I remember from this movie, I also saw this in theaters, and most of what I remember from this movie is how funny it was, and specifically one joke that also made me laugh. I'm glad it made me laugh out loud again when I saw it again. Back it up. You remember that scene?
Back it up. Back it up. Scott, we need to help Scott, but nothing's going to stop us.
Yeah, nothing's going to... We're going to go ahead and help Scott. Nothing's going to stop us. And then they see the police. Back it up. 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 Back it up.
You're like, nope.
No, this movie is funny. This movie is also extremely creative. I'll get into that in a second, but it's creative on a level I wasn't expecting. All right, let me get to the notes itself, though. There's a lot of little references and things that I caught in this movie. I've talked about Tales of Suspense in that comic line. Tales to Astonish is another comic line where a lot of famous heroes come from. I believe Tales of Astonish is where Spider-Man comes from. I believe I got it wrong in Iron Man. I said Tales of Suspense. But I believe Tales to Astonish is where Spider-Man comes from. And they name dropped it in this movie. They do that quite a bit, actually, throughout the MCU, where they just name drop comic lines and things like that. And I've been catching them lately. I'm on to you guys, people in the past. This is an anti-hero. I love how absolutely unheroic this guy is. This guy is an actual criminal. Yeah. This guy, we see him first in jail for crimes that he committed. And he's in a consort of criminals. An entire criminal team, actually. Yeah. Which actually makes him perfect for the Ant-Man. Speaking of which, this is technically a passing of the torch movie without having to actually show the person whose torch you passed. Which I love about this. The Ant-Man is like this legendary figure that no one actually knows if he's even real. They've got like pictures of and some anecdotal evidence, but they don't actually have proof that Hank Pym is the Ant-Man. There are several proteges in this movie, actually. This is the movie of proteges. So you have Scott, who is the new Ant-Man. Yeah. You have Cross, which is technically the new Pym. He's the bad guy. And you have Hope, which is the new Wasp, I guess. By the way, this is the most lenient justice system I've ever seen in media. So this guy, he's like a career criminal. One, he can even get a job after being I'm pretty sure that's a felony, what he's committed, as well as just being out and about. I mean, I don't want to compare this too much to the real world. This would not happen. This story would not happen in the real world.
I don't know. There was a kid I know about across the United States carjacking and jacking a whole bunch of random stuff, stealing from rich people.
There's a very important word you used there. Kid. How old was this guy?
He started only 13 and continued until he was 18 something.
Justice system works very different for people that are under 18. So I can kind of understand that. There's typically a lot more lenient for kids. Even though this is a very lenient justice system, I absolutely feel for this man. He's trying to get a job at Baskin-Robbins of all places. And he just can't because he's got a record. And it sucks. It's a story that a lot of other people can relate to in this country. Yeah, this country in particular, actually. Because once you've been to prison, even though if you get out, they expect you to reform yourself and make sure that you don't go back to the life of crime. But that's very hard when you can't, because you can't make money, because no one will hire you, because you've been to prison. And you see that manifest in this movie where he gets fired from Baskin-Robbins and is like, you know what? It's time to start stealing again. It resonates with me, because I've seen this happen in my own life to other people I know. Not to me specifically, thank God. But, as well as even though he specifically doesn't have to feed his daughter, he does have a family to feed. In addition to himself, he cares a lot about his daughter. Although, currently being taken care of by a stepfather who does not want him near. Who's a cop of all people.
The irony.
They do lightly brush on the problems with the American justice system in this movie, which I appreciate, as well as the broken home situations that a lot of people are in, which I very much appreciate, as someone who has come up from a broken home. it is extremely hard not to root for this guy, even though it's very well established that he is a criminal. They do a lot of things as well to make sure, like, they kind of portray him as like a Robin Hood. He steals from rich people, mostly, who could probably do with like a few less dollars. It's not that big a deal. Although they don't go into all the crimes that he's done. And it is still a crime to steal from people. Speaking of stealing, by far, it's like a really good justification for why this guy is Ant-Man. So that scene where he breaks into Hank's house to steal the suit is amazing. As well as like a really good establishment for, oh, this is why we picked this guy. As well as him being disposable. It makes for like a really interesting hero origin, I guess.
Because he knows how to break into places.
Yeah, he knows. It's supposed to be a heist movie. He is hired to steal the suit before it gets used for the wrong purposes. Though that setup is kind of fucked up. It's like this guy is trying to turn his life around, but then you give him the offer of a lifetime.
Where he can't kind of escape.
And you don't even leave anything for him that's like valuable outside the suit either. Yeah. Like not like one gold bar maybe, just some money maybe, just something, just a suit. And I also love this. I also love when he goes to put the suit back.
Yeah.
Like fuck this. That's also what makes him an anti-hero. He doesn't want to be the hero until he needs to be. He explicitly tries to avoid being the hero.
And then immediately gets arrested.
Yes. They kind of force him to put the suit on.
Like, he had no choice.
I was talking earlier about how creative this movie is. This movie and the Avengers don't have Problem X. Problem X is something we're going to talk a lot about when we get to Captain America. You should keep it in mind, though. This movie has, like, by far the best justifications for avoiding Problem X. What this movie also does very well, I don't know if you noticed, typically when they are fighting, it doesn't affect the rest of the world that much. Some of the best fights are inside a single briefcase that is falling to the ground.
Because they're so small.
And like, if that fight goes wrong, a briefcase is gonna fall to the ground and it's gonna hurt the ground maybe. Yeah, that's about it. Another like really big fight scene takes place inside an entire bedroom on a set of train tracks with Thomas the Tank Engine. Okay, some of that house gets destroyed a bit.
Yeah. There's a giant train, Thomas the Train Engine sticking out of it. A giant hat.
Like, that's about it. They actually highlight, like, the points where, oh, something big gets knocked away, but because of how small they are, you see, like, a Thomas the Tank Engine kind of roll over to the window. Kind of pitifully, too. I love stuff like that.
It's like, the comedy, like, they're tiny, but, like, in their version, they're a lot bigger.
As well as him being able to invade the Avengers complex.
Oh, yeah.
Because of his unique abilities. He's able to bypass Falcon entirely, because Falcon just really cannot hit this man. He has no hope to hit this man.
He has to come up with a new strategy. He's probably coming with an adventure.
It forces people to come up with some new strategies to deal with him.
Yeah, because he's like, I'm small. Smack.
Ant-Man is a really good addition to our hero lineup. I assume you agree, right?
Yep.
He's a very different hero as well.
I would like him to be like the leader of the next thing.
That would be interesting. I don't know if he's much of a leader material.
Not leader, but like one of the main characters.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Especially with all the other Avengers leaving.
Yeah.
He might have to be. I also like his juxtaposition to the rest of the heroes. Throughout the movies in general, he also spends a lot of time outside of the main group.
Yeah.
So here, Hank Pym does not like the Stark family.
No.
Whereas you kind of need to deal with the Stark family if you want to be part of the Avengers. They invade the Avengers complex because they are not technically aligned with them. We'll get into this in the later movie. Their conflicts happen outside of what these people are doing over here. These people being the Avengers. He's also very different from our classic heroes. He's not very heroic.
Not at all.
He's got a good heart. He's a very kind person. Just wants to see his daughter. Yeah. Which I think a lot of people can relate to. It's very sad too. That's all he wants, really. I just want to see my daughter. I just want to live a normal life. I fucked up in the past, but I would like to get my life on track. As well as, again, him being an actual criminal,
Yeah.
like the other heroes. We got to keep an eye on this Ant-Man. He's going to be very important later on. I have one more thing for my notes. I have a question of the day. We used to do these.
Okay.
It's a very good question of the day. It's the most hype question of the day, the most well thought out, and the most interesting question I've ever written. I got two, one for each movie too. Are you ready for this?
Sure. Which one first?
All right. Start with the Avengers. How are you today?
Good.
Good to hear. I'm also doing pretty well. All right, Ant-Man.
Okay.
What is a food or dish that used to be your favorite as a kid, but you have not eaten much today?
Jolly Ranchers.
For me, it is. I don't know if you've ever had this before. Rice with sugar.
No.
Okay. What you do is you make your rice like normal. You just put like butter and sugar in it. I remember it being like really good as a kid and thinking like, man, I don't think I would ever have something like this today. So the problem with these questions of the day is that all the other questions I could think of are either something that someone else has done way better than us or just kind of boring. Like surface level analysis. Oh, what do you think about this team? What do you think? Or something I've already asked actually in these notes. Although I do genuinely think these are the best questions I've come up with. I'm hard on myself. All right, what do you think of these movies? Final thoughts.
I think they're both good.
All right. Yeah. For a time, Ant-Man was my favorite movie. It has since been replaced a few times when I went through the actual Marvelous journey. All right. Speaking of Marvelous Journey, we've got one more movie to get to before we get to the journey proper.